I traveled across the globe to meet my online girlfriend after a year of chatting every day. However, she panicked and left me alone for most of the trip. At 28 years old, I find myself needing to share this experience. To give you some context, I met this girl, who is also 28, a couple of years ago in a gaming Discord server through some mutual friends. We hit it off immediately, bonding over our shared interests and senses of humor. I was genuinely impressed by her ambition. She works in a tech-related field and is incredibly passionate about her projects. Our conversations became more frequent, and soon we were talking for hours every day. Occasionally, we would chat with others, but once they left, we would continue our discussions until the early hours of the morning. Honestly, this connection felt different from any previous online relationships I had experienced. One night, while discussing our favorite movies, we discovered that our tastes aligned almost perfectly. We even started using a sync service to watch films together. Everything changed when she confessed her feelings for me early last year. It was during a video call when she blurted out that she had been feeling this way for a while but was hesitant to say anything due to the distance. We had been flirting a bit, so I wasn't completely taken aback when I admitted that I felt the same way. Our online interactions intensified even more. Sometimes, she would hold her phone up while cooking or doing other activities just so we could stay connected. In hindsight, I should have been clearer about what I wanted before we labeled ourselves as a couple, but I was swept up in the moment. There was an undeniable chemistry between us that I hadn't felt in a long time. My dating life back home had been rather uneventful. Before long, she began referring to me as her boyfriend in conversations with her friends and family. She would share stories about how her mother would ask about me or how she would mention me to her coworkers, saying things like, "My boyfriend said the funniest thing today," or "My boyfriend and I are planning to see this movie this weekend." While I found these comments flattering, I always thought we should meet in person before fully committing to a relationship. I realize now that I should have corrected her sooner, but I assumed we would meet soon enough and didn't want to hurt her feelings. We talked about meeting several times, but she has a chronic health condition that requires medication and causes her significant anxiety. While this made traveling challenging for her, it didn't hinder her daily life too much. We decided it would be more practical for me to visit her in Canada rather than her coming to the United States. Given the current political climate, crossing the border isn't exactly straightforward, and I won't delve into that here, but it's true that things have become more complicated. I made the bold choice to plan a trip to see her around the holidays. The flights and hotel were more expensive than I had anticipated, but I believed it would be worth it. The flights alone cost over $800, and the hotel for 3 nights added another $700 to the bill. To be honest, I could barely afford it, but I had been saving for a while and felt this was an important step. After all this time communicating, I was eager to finally meet her in person. In the days leading up to the trip, we discussed it almost daily. She seemed excited but also admitted to feeling anxious about her nerves getting the best of her. When we first met, she mentioned that she had been working on anxiety management techniques with her therapist, which gave me hope that she was preparing to make our visit a success. She even made a list of places in her city that she wanted to show me, and I was looking forward to visiting a museum she loved and a few other spots she thought I might enjoy. I returned from that trip just this past weekend, and I'm still trying to process everything. Most of my time was spent in my hotel room, where I'm currently writing this. I flew all this way to explore the city, but I hardly got the chance to see it. The trip started off on a rough note. After landing, I took a 40-minute Uber ride to my hotel, which cost around $70 because, of course, everything in that city is expensive. I was anxious, too. I had only been to Canada a few times and had never visited this particular city. I was about to meet someone I had only ever seen through a screen, and the entire Uber ride made me feel nauseous. She was responding to my constant texts with updates about my arrival, but her messages felt rushed and tense. I figured she must be feeling even more anxious than I was, so I tried to be understanding. I assumed she would be ready to meet when I arrived at the hotel, as she lived just 5 minutes away. I chose that hotel specifically because it was close to her, thinking it would make things easier for her. I texted her wait until she felt ready to meet me, but she kept saying she needed more time, and she didn't understand why she was feeling so anxious. After a while, she seemed well enough for us to talk. Initially, it felt awkward, nothing like our easygoing online chats, but after about half an hour, she suggested we visit her place. She mentioned that I could meet her brother there, which would help her feel more comfortable. Her brother lived in a cozy home just a 5-minute drive from my hotel. He seemed like a friendly, laid-back guy who enjoyed gaming, and they had a cute black cat that was determined to sit on my lap. As I had expected from our video calls, their apartment was tidy but had a lived-in feel. Although we spent some time hanging out there, she remained quite nervous throughout. Occasionally, she would go quiet, staring off into space as if lost in thought. Her brother tried to keep the conversation going, asking about my flight and other topics, but I noticed I was engaging with him more than with her. She mentioned that she was too anxious to drive, but she wanted to take me around and show me parts of the city. However, she felt overwhelmed and suggested that perhaps it would be better to wait until the next day. I proposed that we could all go together with her brother driving, but in the end, she called an Uber to take me back to my hotel. Our total time spent together on that first day was no more than 3 or 4 hours, and most of that was with her brother. By 9 p.m., I returned to my hotel room and collapsed. I was exhausted from the emotional roller coaster of the day, especially since I had been awake since around 4 a.m. for my journey. She texted me, "Sleep well. Sorry today was rough. Tomorrow will be better, I promise." I tried to hold on to that promise as I drifted off to sleep after sending her a goodnight message. The next morning, I woke up early, not sure if it was jet lag or just nerves. I had nothing to do at around 7 a.m., and she usually sleeps in since she works nights. I sat in my hotel room, waiting to hear from her. Despite my hunger, I didn't want to venture too far in case she messaged me. Eventually, I settled for a terrible and overpriced breakfast at the hotel restaurant. After that, I took a shower, watched some TV, browsed social media, and made a quick call to my mom. For long hours later, she finally messaged me to say she was awake but still not ready to see me because her nerves were still getting the best of her. When I asked if there was anything I could do to help, she said she just needed some time. I thought it might relieve some pressure if we met in a public place instead of her coming to the hotel, but she said she would let me know shortly. I tried to hide my frustration, but I was starting to feel annoyed. To pass the time, I decided to walk to a nearby drugstore. I picked up some Tylenol for the headache that was creeping in, some snacks, and a portable toothbrush since I had forgotten mine. I was mostly just trying to kill time. After spending more time than necessary exploring the pharmacy, I found a small lunch spot nearby. I thought it would be a nice gesture to bring her something to eat, so I got sandwiches for both of us. After returning to the hotel to drop off my things, I messaged her to let her know I had picked up lunch and asked if I could come over. About 15 minutes later, she replied, "Sure, I could come over." I called an Uber and headed to her apartment. By the time I arrived, which was about 2 hours later, she hadn't even touched the food I brought. She thanked me for thinking of her but said she wasn't hungry. I tried to hide my disappointment, but at least her brother enjoyed the second sandwich. We spent some time in their living room chatting. She seemed slightly less anxious than the day before, but she still wasn't completely at ease. Just as I was starting to think we might actually do something together, she mentioned that she, her brother, and I were going to a gathering with some of their friends. I was taken aback. I had come all this way to spend time with her, but I reasoned that maybe being around other people would help her feel more comfortable. She assured me we would only be there for a few hours. When I asked where it was, I felt a bit disappointed. I had not expected our first real day together to look like this. The drive took about an hour, and I sat in the back seat while she sat in the passenger seat, chatting with her brother about people I didn't know and inside jokes I wasn't part of. She would occasionally try to explain things to me in anticipation. Given that she usually stays up until 3 o'clock or 4 a.m., I thought we would still have plenty of time to spend together. I imagined we could sit and chat like we used to online or watch one of those movies we always talked about. Instead, she asked her brother in the car if she could drop me off at my hotel before they headed home. I was taken aback. Here I was, having traveled across the country to meet her, and she was too exhausted to spend any real time with me. When she looked back at me for confirmation, I hesitated but finally said, "Sure, that's fine," because I didn't know what else to say. The drive back to my hotel was mostly quiet. She mentioned that her anxiety had been acting up more than usual and apologized for being so strange. I wanted to tell her it was okay, but it really wasn't. I felt helpless. I couldn't force her to want to spend time with me. She gave me a quick hug goodbye and promised to text me in the morning when she got home. I felt completely out of sorts as I walked up to my room. After another day of minimal communication, I began to think that this entire trip had been a huge mistake. Here I was, back in my hotel room, bewildered and alone. Even though my girlfriend was just a few minutes away, I felt isolated in a foreign country, having not spent any real time with her. I tried to watch a movie on my laptop, but I couldn't focus. Instead, I found myself aimlessly scrolling through social media until around 1 a.m. I worried that texting her about my feelings might only add to her anxiety, so I held back. But I was at a loss for what to do. By the time I was supposed to have dinner with her family the next evening, I felt like I had met everyone in her life except for her. Eventually, I decided to text her and share how I was feeling. I aimed to be straightforward yet gentle, acknowledging that I understood anxiety was tough but expressing my disappointment that we hadn't been able to spend more time together. I reminded her that I had traveled all this way to see her and that it bothered me she seemed more comfortable with me in public than when we were alone. I made it clear that I was confused and a bit down about the situation, but I wasn't angry with her. When she finally replied, it was a lengthy message that took over 20 minutes to come through. She apologized profusely, saying she wanted to make the trip worthwhile for me but was simply too exhausted and that her anxiety was still sky high. She reassured me that she was genuinely interested in me but admitted that she felt too anxious when it was just the two of us. She explained that being around others made her feel more at ease because she didn't feel the pressure to be entertaining or engaging. She expressed concern that I was judging her or comparing her to her online persona. She also mentioned that she was apprehensive about physical contact after such a long time apart and worried that I had unrealistic expectations of her. I told her that there were many steps between a hug and anything more intimate, and I wasn't expecting anything physical. In fact, I hadn't even hugged her during this trip. I just wanted to spend quality time with her, like we did online. I emphasized that I hadn't traveled this far for anything physical, I just wanted to meet the person I had been connecting with for months. That seemed to relieve her a bit, and she said that after meeting her mother, we could spend some time together. She mentioned that her mom was excited to see me and suggested we could return to my hotel afterward to watch a movie or something. I accepted the plan, as it seemed better than nothing. That night, I struggled to sleep, reflecting on the entire situation and questioning whether I had made a mistake by getting involved with someone who had such severe anxiety. I didn't blame her for her mental health issues, it wasn't her fault. But I began to wonder if I could handle the challenges of a long-distance relationship. Today was my last day here, and I was set to leave early the next morning. This entire trip felt like a waste of both money and effort. Instead of spending my time with her, I had mostly been sitting alone in a hotel room. I genuinely thought she would want to spend every moment with me, especially since we had been discussing this trip for so long. After this experience, I wasn't sure if this relationship could last. Was I overreacting? I understood that anxiety was real, but it felt pointless to have traveled so far only to feel so disconnected. Update: several days have passed since my return, and since many people have been asking about what happened, I thought I should provide an update. In the comments, some of you were quite critical. I received a message from her every few minutes, reminding me that I could take an Uber to her apartment at any time and that we had dinner plans with her mother later that day. Many people suggested I should cancel the dinner, but I decided to go ahead and see how things unfolded. After all, I had traveled this far, so I might as well meet her mom. I quickly showered, changed into my clothes, and headed to her place. Given the previous days, I felt a bit nervous but tried to stay optimistic. When I arrived, it was a pleasant change that her brother wasn't home. Although she still seemed a little anxious, she was definitely less on edge than before. We ended up watching a show together that she had been eager to see with me. Sitting side by side on her couch felt more like the quality time I had been hoping for, especially since she leaned slightly against me. While we didn't engage in any physical activity, it felt nice to be close. After a while, her brother returned home, and we started discussing some of the comments her friends had made about us at the party. It felt more like our online chats, and I appreciated that. Around 5 p.m., we began preparing to go to dinner with her mother, which made me a bit anxious. Meeting the parents is always a big deal, and given how the trip had gone so far, I wasn't sure what to expect. I could sense her agitation as she drove us to the restaurant, so I tried to keep the conversation light to distract her. The restaurant was a charming little Italian place, and when we arrived, her mother was already there. As soon as she saw us, she got up and hugged her daughter before turning to me with a warm smile. I could see where my girlfriend got her looks, they had the same eyes. Dinner went surprisingly well. Her mother was friendly and asked about my work and family without being overwhelming. She seemed genuinely excited about her daughter and me being together, and we clicked right away. Throughout dinner, my girlfriend appeared more relaxed than I had seen her during the entire trip. She was smiling, contributing to the conversation, and even placed her hand on my arm to emphasize a point. When we left, her mother hugged me and said I could come over anytime. Even though I wasn't sure if there would be another opportunity, it felt nice to hear. After dinner, we returned to her apartment. Although her brother was there, it felt more private since he tended to stay in his room. We hung out, talked, and watched things together, and it felt more one-on-one than before. It wasn't quite the alone time I had hoped for, but it was definitely an improvement. To my surprise, she offered to drive me back herself instead of calling an Uber again. As the evening progressed, it felt like a small victory. On the way back, we discussed the trip, and I made an effort to be understanding when she apologized again for how things had gone. She acknowledged that she wished we had more time like we did that day and suggested that since our first meeting was over, perhaps the next time would be easier. When we arrived at my hotel, she helped me check that I hadn't left anything behind while packing for my early departure. Despite its simplicity, that moment felt intimate in a way that most of the trip hadn't. We shared a goodbye kiss, nothing extravagant, just a sweet, brief kiss that left me wondering what the trip might have been like if we had reached this point sooner. After she left, we exchanged a few texts. She mentioned that she wished we had spent more time together, and as I was getting ready for bed, she told me she had bought a frame for a photo of us but realized we hadn't taken any good pictures together. The few we had from the weekend were mostly group shots from the party, which didn't fit her needs. Feeling disappointed, I suggested I could take an Uber back to get a decent photo. After about 10 minutes without a response, I assumed she had either fallen asleep or got distracted. Then, out of the blue, she texted me to come downstairs. She had driven all the way back to the hotel, anxiety be damned, just to take a picture and say goodbye. I rushed downstairs, and when I got to the lobby, she was waiting for me. We took selfies and asked the night cashier to snap a few group photos. Then we kissed again, this time more deeply. She hugged me tightly and whispered that she was happy I came, even though the weekend hadn't gone as we had expected. That moment felt the most genuine and connected of the entire visit. The next morning, I woke up early to prepare for my journey home. Shortly after I returned, she texted me to wish me a safe trip. The return journey went smoothly, giving me plenty of time to reflect on what had transpired and what it meant for us moving forward.